Hi, viewers, and welcome back to the Huddle. I'm Kurt Geller, and today I'm here with GMA Consulting Senior Advisor Alex Dixon. How are you today, Alex?
Outstanding. It's good to be with you, Kurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Being we're both kind of here in Las Vegas. I know you're a Las Vegas born here and everything. So, how did growing up here, especially your roots in the West Side, kind of help shape your perspective in the gaming and hospitality industries?
No, absolutely. I'm proud of my hometown. I'm a hometown kid here back in Las Vegas, and my family. We've been here for really since the '50s. I've told the story about my grandmother who moved out in the 1950s. She couldn't walk through the front door of a casino when she first came, and so you could imagine the amount of change that our community has seen, and our industry has seen as well. But Las Vegas was a small town when I was growing up with a big industry. And we had so many different people innovating. And I remember as a kid climbing up in my tree at home to see the Mirage being built, and so you could see it in a distance. This beautiful structure coming out, and I remember walking down or climbing down with my cousin, and we would build these replicas of the Mirage in the dirt. Right, we would get a hose and we'd make our own little volcanoes, and it was amazing just the experience. And so I think many of us who grew up in the late '80s, early '90s here in Vegas remember how really that Mirage changed the landscape of really gaming, but specifically Las Vegas and here, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah, I've been coming here as a tourist since I was 12, originally from New Jersey and everything, but just getting to watch it kind of expand over the last 15 years or so and having moved here in 2020. You're right.
Mhm.
It's incredible not only how much it can expand, but how quickly it can as well. And kind of stepping away from Las Vegas, I know you also spent time building a career outside the city, including
Mhm.
helping to revitalize Q Casino and Resort in Iowa. What
Mhm.
type of challenges did that present compared to your experience with an MGM or Caesars?
Well, really, I view it as less challenge. It's really just more so opportunity. With my time at Caesars and MGM, you got to see just massive organizations with large numbers of people, whether it's 60,000 in Caesars case. We had developed really just this world's greatest collection of assets and marketing programs, and so there were so many lessons learned through those experience, whether MGM really deployed entertainment, intellectual property, and then just deployed capital to really build a big capture catchment area in order to draw people from. And so that's really what I took from there. From Caesars, really we took in some cases C or B assets and really able to take a total rewards program to get the most out of them. So whether it was the loyalty marketing or just overall programmatic elements, I was able to take that alongside my time at Goldman Sachs in investment banking and capital and finance to deploy it to a great opportunity in Iowa. It was really a phenomenal place, and they are headed in the right direction. They got a new leader, Anthony Williams, who's there. But so much of it was taking that skill set and then applying it to an area that really just needed to reinvest in itself, and that's what we did. We built and have now opened a Hilton Tapestry hotel, a rooftop restaurant, outdoor amphitheater, indoor family entertainment zone, and totally redid the casino as well as relaunched the marketing program. And so that program, that community, that asset are going to provide a great deal for years to come. And I'm glad to be a part of it. And it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, no, Anthony is someone who we've luckily had the chance to speak with for Global Gaming Insider in the past, and it's really incredible to see its progress over the years, and especially more recently, as you said. But kind of bringing it back to Las Vegas, I know when you first joined as CEO in January 2025, Resorts World Las Vegas was still establishing itself post opening and facing some challenges. What was your initial assessment of the property, and what were your top priorities in those first few months?
Yeah, it was. Resorts World is an amazing property, amazing collection of human beings who are involved in that operation, all the way from the Lim family all the way down. And so it was a privilege to serve, as a CEO, and I think positively about my time and the experience there. And so, look, Resorts World, and like all of Las Vegas, is going through a change, right? So for a very long time, Las Vegas, we were on the really demand side of the demand curve, meaning that we had growing demand. And so what we needed to do as a community was to innovate, to bring on new assets or new supply to satiate that demand. Now, for the first time in a long time, we're imploding more casinos than we're building. Right? We are welcoming less flights than what we had in the past. There are fewer countries who find us to be the top destination to be coming. And so we're more reliant upon a largely domestic client base that now has a significant amount of supply in other areas. And so I believe we need to continue to innovate largely around cultural norms because, look, our industry, have not always been the best allocators of capital. And so to that end is we need to leverage our operating expense in a better way in order to stimulate demand or kind of further reduce expense. Now that's not fun, but in order for us to continue to develop returns as an industry, we're going to have to innovate, and we're going to have to innovate around OpEx and not CapEx because it's going to be increasingly hard, to raise capital in this environment to deploy it, just given the overall return levels that we're seeing in the marketplace today.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you mind taking me through some of the biggest, operational or market challenges you experienced during your tenure at Resorts World Las Vegas and how you went about approaching them?
Yeah, and I really want to take it away less from just time in Resorts World Las Vegas. I think just a little bit more broadly as just being an operator within the Las Vegas market and not the property specifically. But so much of what you have to do is be able to understand how the market is changing faster than, let's call it, the depreciation of the asset. So you've got this asset or this collection of assets that literally through COVID, you're seeing some stair step functions in terms of what's going on. And I would encourage people to look at the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. And if you look, there's a small section in there on demographics. And it's interesting, when you take a look, post COVID, you've really seen a dramatic change in terms of the complexion of the Las Vegas visitor. We have gotten much more diverse, as well as there are markets that were either coming to Vegas in smaller numbers that have increased. And so one area that is close to me that I followed, I call it now the Usher effect. And so in the 5 years prior to COVID, African Americans represented about 9% of the visitors to Las Vegas. And then post COVID, that number has risen to about 14 or 15%. And so while not a huge from the naked eye, you haven't seen a significant change, but those numbers are pretty significant on that standpoint. And so to that end is, how are we changing the physical offerings that we offer within the market? So if there was any growth, let's call it, in a visitation or visitor base, I think it's worthwhile that capital allocators in Las Vegas specifically begin to look at how we're able to capture growing markets. And look, overall, our visitation may be declining, but within there's going to be some subsets, whether it's Latino, the Asian American, African American clientele. And so, what are we doing differently? And I think we're doing a lot of good things on the entertainment side. There's programming that's happening at properties that I never ever would have expected. But I would encourage us to look at the physical assets that are under our building. And there are many places, if you go up and down the strip, that there are underutilized assets, and within these massive structures that I would charge us that we need to be able to provide opportunities for other people to greenlight what to do in these spaces. I think for us as a community, we're reaching the stage where we need to be able to open the aperture of what can happen under the roofs of these integrated resorts, because there's too much conditioned space that is going underutilized when we have such a decline in the visitor base. And so excited by what LVCVA will produce. We can see if this trend continues from my friend Usher, who has done phenomenal things during his community. It's just representative of a wave, but we've got to make adjustments as a community to take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned having the chance to move down to Las Vegas, and I did that right at the end of 2020, so kind of in the middle of COVID. And so just getting to see how the city responded and then continued to grow after that. Like now you could go play golf and there's a giant face laughing at you if you shank a ball, and you
Mm-hmm.
can at the same time go see a concert at that place. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really incredible. But just having a chance to look back now, what are you most proud of accomplishing with Resorts World Las Vegas, even during a relatively short tenure?
Yeah, so much of some of the stories that were happening prior were able to die. Were able to die down. There were a lot of personalities who were involved and engaged there that we were able to be able to kind of get to a normalized relationship. But look, my tenure there was short, and so I'm grateful to have the opportunity. It's like being a head coach in the NFL team, right? Like if you get a shot, you go give it a try. But I have nothing but positive and great things. I mean, the place is beautiful. The team members are phenomenal. I wish the management team and ownership, really nothing but the best. And it was a privilege to be able to serve. And so I'm rooting for everybody, just like I'm rooting for Vegas, because literally we're at our best when we're able to capture the excitement of the American public. And so, as long as we're in the zeitgeist of the American public, so that people come here to have a phenomenal time, we're going to be just fine. And so, look, numbers are tough right now, but I think we are going to see our best days ahead. It's going to take some innovation, and I'm glad to be here to be a part of it to help drive us into the next phase of our community.
No, of course. I'm kind of glad you brought up how Las Vegas strives when everyone is succeeding, because that is something I've heard throughout, even speaking to more locals, casinos, and strip casinos, that usually when one property is failing or one property is seeing a decrease, it means the city is seeing a decrease. So I completely agree with you there that Las Vegas as a whole kind of needs to succeed to continue improving. But
And
now, oh,
and
sorry.
we've done it before. The one thing before we leave that point is just to be able to say is, even when we saw demand increasing, there were always bits and times in the calendar that were had dips. And so let me give you an example of how the city rallied to create something that only we could do. So in those weeks in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, right, we historically had a dip. But we rallied as a community 20, 30 years ago to create this national finals rodeo, this cowboy kind of cultural phenomenon. And so, literally, we said, "Hey, we're going to be a destination here in Las Vegas, where we're going to welcome this specific culture, and we're all going to get around it and celebrate it." We mimic that when we go and say, "Hey, during Chinese New Year," right? Like, I mean, I definitely didn't grow up just knowing what Chinese New Year is, but when China was producing, world's greatest number of millionaires, we said, "Hey, we're gonna find about this culture, and we're gonna rally around Chinese New Year, and we're gonna celebrate." And so, I think we need to remember those muscles, and then figure out how we can rally around other cultures. We've begun to do that with F1. But I think there's other ones that, let's say, don't have as large of a ticket from an IP perspective, that we literally can tap into culture to create a citywide approach to kind of driving demand, so that we can lift the tide for everyone within the community. And so I think that's a theme that hopefully we're going to be able to deploy in other cases, because it's going to be needed. Because let me tell you, just deploying capital or just deploying marketing programs on its own is not going to stimulate the demand that we need in order to develop returns that Wall Street expects.
Absolutely, completely agreed. And having joined GMA Consulting, my apologies, as a senior advisor, What let me restart that question so I
Mhm, sure.
don't. And you've now joined GMA Consulting as a senior advisor and continue working with strategic roles in gaming and hospitality. What
Mhm.
excites you most about this next chapter of your career?
Well, GMA is a phenomenal platform that really I got exposed to, decades ago. Steve Galloway is a good friend, and we worked together when we were raising capital for developers who wanted to build casinos here in Las Vegas. And then later, when I was served as CEO at Q Casino, leveraged both sides of the GMA firm, which is the feasibility. So for when people want to go and build or do great things, GMA is a great thought partner to help you kind of accomplish those. The second is we wanted to revamp our marketing programs, and so there's a great deep bench of talent who does this across the industry. And so sometimes, as an operator, particularly when you're off literally on an island, you need that supplemental thought partner as well as execution partner. It was a natural fit for me to join the team because I don't only just tout the capabilities that we have as a collective kind of bring together. I've directly used them, and so the return was tenfold. It's been amazing to be able to now to even think of myself as someone who has the opportunity to kind of either whether it's educate or execute, because what I found is, smaller organizations sometimes need help developing their strategy, and then sometimes bigger organizations need help to execute them. And so that's where we've carved out this niche. The team's, been well versed in helping operators along the way, and investors and whoever else. So it's really a privilege. Teams welcome me with open arms, and now pounding the pavement, hustling. And so come see us at gmaconsulting.com. Email us at info@gmaconsulting.com as well if you need help across the gaming spectrum.
Absolutely. And what initially drew you to GMA, and how does the firm's experience in independent research and advising with gaming and hospitality align with your own career trajectory?
Yeah, so I think it's squarely, as I mentioned before, I've not only not only helped to drive business there now, but I'm also a user of the services. And so what is helpful is that look, I don't have to be an expert in all things to all people. But what I've really been able to now start to help to do is to understand the capabilities of the firm in order when I show up, through my relationships, because it's a small industry, as you know, people end up at whether it's operators, investors, real estate investment trusts, East Coast, West Coast destination markets, or even international. That sometimes, again, you have an idea that may be percolating in your head. You need to test out your theory or your model, so GMA just provides just a plethora of talent who's able to provide, with either a quick conversation or an extended engagement to be able to offer up some help to have some stair step functions. And the last piece is literally the horsepower. And so for me, coming off an operating role, launching a new consulting practice is what I found is look, I'm an extrovert. I love to be around people. I love to bring people together. And so being part of a great team is something that I've done throughout my career. And so I'm privileged to be able to join such a great organization.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. And are you able to speak on the current challenges or projects that you're advising on, and how your experience in leading large scale properties better informs that work?
Absolutely. So let me give you an example of one of my clients through Momentum Advisory Partners. So a company called GoodWorks is here in Las Vegas, and so GoodWorks is the best way to describe it is like think of Uber for hotel housekeepers. Within hospitality organizations, you literally have the responsibility and opportunity to deploy variable labor to go meet the needs of the business. And so if we use just a hotel as an example, let's say you have full-time employees, there's part-time, but then sometimes you need some last-minute help. And so in this case, GoodWorks has developed a relationship with the Culinary Union. They have union and non-union jobs. But if you are a hotel manager or housekeeping manager and you needed extra help or support, you develop the relationship with GoodWorks. We have over 40,000 people who are registered on the app in a number of different job categories. And then literally you say, all right, hey, I need 10 people in 2 hours to go help me, to clean rooms at a hotel. And so that's what happens each and every day. And so helping this company not only forge relationships within the industry, but help to expand into new lines of business. And so that company is GOODWRX.com. And it is a phenomenal, business that in this time where, for a long time in Las Vegas, you could just depend on, hey, we're always going to be 88% occupied all the time. Well, as we know, there's huge fluctuations in occupancy, and it's hard keeping up with those changes. And so this allows, whether you're a centralized scheduler or housekeeping manager, but think of that function in any different discipline that is inside one of these either big buildings or large buildings. My job there is to help to be able to develop not only new relationships, but then help to refine products to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our customers.
Absolutely. And how is transitioning from more of an operator or CEO role to, advising or consulting perspective change how you approach industry challenges? And also, what unique value can you bring to clients?
Yeah, so I think my specific unique value is I've sat on both sides of the table, meaning whether it's been as an operator. One of the things, particularly when you engage consultants, is really to have an understanding of the scope of work, of when do you need to pick up the phone to get help, and then when do you need to let them go so that you can, kind of run with either the recommendations or the programming kind of going in. And so right or wrong, I have a very, not only conversational, but as well as advisory, let's say, approach to the business that, people either need your support or help, or not. Now, developing the relationship and maintaining those relationships so that you're, one of the first calls that people make when they need to devise a program is really important. But for the most part, a big part of my job is like part being a therapist, other part is being being a doctor prescribing medication. In other cases, hey, you got to go in and do it. So there's a whole range of ways that you serve. Whereas as a CEO or chief executive officer, it was so interesting just how much time of your day is spent, let's call it spinning plates of the various organizations that you're in. But what I would say is that it's actually very similar when I take a step and think about it, because as a president CEO of an integrated resort, you operate 15 different lines of businesses. So there's a hotel, there's retail, there's, let's call it security, there's facilities, there's food and beverage, IT, entertainment. And so much of what you're doing is almost being a management consultant in each one of these areas to be able to assess where are we as an organization? What are the things where do we want to get to be? And what are the management interventions that we're going to deploy in order to go from point A to point B? And so that process of looking at disparate businesses under one roof really gets you very well versed to be able to tackle a new business, look at the financials, assess, and then prescribe a set of conditions, and then have an appropriate amount of check-ins. And so in this case is, that assessment and then evolving into a set of recommendations. That's the kind of the key component. What you do on this side, the hard part it really is on execution and working with teams to kind of go do that. But having seen so many different businesses in several different geographies, it's really set me up well to at least have a perspective on how to tackle certain problems.
Yeah, I would certainly imagine that not only being on both sides of the table, as you said, but having experience in major markets and smaller markets can kind of, help you attribute yourself to no matter the size of the operator, supplier, whoever you're working with. So I'm sure your experience that you've gained here in Las Vegas and outside of Las Vegas has been incredible for your short tenure so far with GMA Consulting. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you going into that. Just to kind of cap off, you just kind of covered all the experience that you have and all the different kind of rooms that you've sat in. So, which trends or shifts do you see kind of shaping the future of the gaming industry, especially with the rise of prediction markets and even the recent tourism declines that you spoke on here in Las Vegas?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, and things are moving so quickly that what I would say broadly. I think within the particularly within the land based section of our industry is that we've for a very long time we've focused on really leveraging our relationships with our regulators to help us expand into new markets. Whereas now we need to partner with our regulators to really defend and advocate for our very existence. Because I think soon we're going to have to choose really as a country, right? Like who is going to regulate our industry, right? We are then going to be able to say, hey, look, yes, you could do all of everything that you do in a physical brick and mortar casino, you could do online. But what are the employment implications of a massive shift in gaming revenue from a brick and mortar to online? And so, look, I'm a free market capitalist, the whole deal. I believe that, but we do need rules. And so, right now, we really have to ask ourselves, just whether it's as Americans or whether it's in the industry, of allowing 18-year-olds to effectively bet, having our 401ks right next to the place where you do your sports betting. The amount of advertising and lack thereof about responsible gaming. We don't need this. We don't need to wait several years to figure out how this ends. And so, I say all that to say is that we not only within our industry we've developed muscles about how to promote ourselves, but we now need to develop muscles about how do we advocate for ourselves. And so, whatever organization, whether you're tribal or commercial, now is the time to actively be engaged in these fights that are going to initially take place in the courts, but eventually are going to take place in the court of public opinion. And so when we come out through these cases, however long it takes, we need to make sure that the industry itself can look back and say, hey, what did we do in order to make sure that we did this the right way? And there's never a perfect answer, but you're not going to do it by sitting on the sidelines. And so everybody, I don't care if you're a banker, a journalist, within responsible gaming, an operator, a supplier, you got to get in the game. And now's the time.
Yeah, absolutely. The gaming industry can change day by day, but I think 2026 is going to be a defining year for a lot of different operators and suppliers and pretty much everyone involved. And it's why we appreciate, having people like you on the huddle. And thank you for taking the time today.
Great. No, thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good one.